So what are the Labour Party's Rachel Maskell's priorities for the city 4 years on since she first took her seat in York Central?
Well, Labour has set out a really clear vision for the country, and within that some very strong policies on issues like housing, which is a real issue in York, not building the luxury apartments which nobody can afford, but building council houses to rent and to buy. I'm focused on the NHS. Yet again, we're seeing the NHS in real crisis. Not enough staff, waiting lists are getting longer and longer, and we know that mental health services in York are creaking, so it's really important that we see the investment going into the NHS where it will have a real difference on the community here in the city. I'm also very much looking to the environment at this election. Obviously, we've had the announcement of the climate emergency, and I think it's really important that we look at this in a global perspective as well as a local perspective.
Meanwhile, Fabia Tate of the Conservatives chose to focus on the environmental issue as one of her top priorities.
I think the top priority is making York leading the eco revolution and making it an example to the rest of the UK. But I also think we need to be ensuring that we get the funding we need to make York an even greater place to live. And that means the environment, it means more housing, investing in our NHS. And I feel I'm the right person to be knocking on those doors, chasing people down the halls of Westminster, working cross-party and with local and national organisations to ensure we get the best deal for York Central.
James Blanchard of the Liberal Democrats was keen to reference Brexit as one of his top focuses for the City of York.
York's voice just isn't being heard right now. That's the real problem. York voted to remain in the European referendum, and that has been ignored. We're an open, tolerant, progressive city, and we're not being heard, and that means we're losing out on our health and our education as well. My 3 children go to a primary school just around the corner from here. That school is losing nearly £300 a year per pupil under the Conservative cuts. That means we have fewer teaching assistants, less enrichment activities, bigger class size. Ultimately, we're going to have worse results unless you can afford to send your children to a private school.
And Tom Franklin of the Greens chose to focus on education in the city as one of his top priorities.
OK, well, education is a huge priority because there's been cuts in education, and we really need to build that up, because that too is about the future. It's about bringing on people so that they can fully participate in society. Transport is another one. If we can get public transport sorted so that people don't want to use their cars, they think, oh, I'm going into town, I'm going to work, wherever. There's a bus, there's a train, I'll use that.
The Brexit Party's Nicholas Skiller was adamant that for his top priorities to happen, political reform is necessary, with climate change, crisis in social care and the NHS being at the top of his wishes for the city. Meanwhile, the SDP's Andrew Dunn has stated that his priorities for the city are focused on protecting York from overcrowding, traffic congestion, flooding, homelessness and companies building on green sites. And the Yorkshire Party's Andrew Snedden said that most important to him is that we need a modernised democratic system involving a Yorkshire Assembly sitting in York. In every area, health, education, transport and the rest, Yorkshire is hugely underfunded relative to London, especially in education. And you will have the chance to vote for one of these candidates in York Central on Thursday the 12th of December. Rory Ward, That's TV.